Hola, hola. Okay, so first I have to say that I have a rough idea of how things work in banks and business and how credit and loan works. But I realized from watching the movies that I don't really know most of the terminology they use. For example, like the swapping and like all these acronyms from these packages of loans they mention. But after watching these documentaries, I feel more aware of the financial system's quirks, and really it got me thinking of how crisis and these kinds of situations affect especially the mid to lower class of the people. Um, from what I could understand from the movie, is that the financial crisis was because of unregulated and out of control of giving loans to regular people or entrepreneurs who in some cases didn't even have a way to pay for the loan, or for example they started businesses that 2 years later or even months later they declared themselves in bankruptcy. um, well, although I'm not a big fan of welfare, I think the system will could be improved by the Universal Salary Initiative. That is it's the universal salaries. For example, in Mexico, that every person in Mexico has the right to receive some kind of salary just for the fact of being Mexican. So I think people would have access to more services and products and not be limited, for example, like the prices of public transport, or have access to better health services. I think that will really improve how the people lives, because at the end, what's important is not well, I mean, it is important, but it's more important the well-being of all the citizens, more than in relation to the money that they own. I also believe, for example, in for the regulatory part of this issue, is that blockchain technology could be implemented to fulfill the needs of transparency in this financial system. Um, and it has to do with democracy totally, because the democratization of these loans and credits and mortgages with no financial liquidity backing them up is an important factor that detonated this situation. And as regarding to my family in 1994 crisis, for what they told me is that we were doing, most of us were doing good. We had stable jobs, but um, my grandpa had to close a really big construction firm that he owned alongside with his brother. And other thing that I remember is that in my city there was a really famous case of some building company that was being developed, and they raised a lot of capital from local investors, and due to the crisis, they eventually declared themselves in bankruptcy, leaving all of the investors, including my grandfather, uh, with nothing. And most of the investors invested like a really big sum of money. And yeah, that was a really big case in which a lot of business people that were really wealthy lost a lot of money. And it was in that epoch, that era.